welcome to my channel. This is the 15th video tutorial in the Python series, and in this video I'll be explaining about functions. So let us understand that what are functions. Functions are set of statements where you can pass input arguments called as parameters, and then it does some specific tasks and produces the output based on it. So now let us see that how can we create functions. So let me write that. Creating or defining functions. Defining a function. For that we use the keyword def for defining, and then write the name of the function. Here I'll name it as hi function, and then open the parentheses and close it, and then use a colon and then enter, and then you need to use a tab or a white space for the indentation purpose, and here you'll write the set of codes which you want to execute when this function is being called. So here in this function I'll just write a simple print statement, hello people. Okay, so here I have defined my hi function. So now suppose that you want to call this function, because a function won't be used or it doesn't do anything until it is being called. So what I'll do is, in order to call a function, I'll just write hi function and open and close the brackets, and now let me save the program. And now let us see the output. Here what has happened is, when I have written hi function here, it means that this hi function has been called, and it goes here and executes this command, that is print hello people. So this is the way in which we can define a function and then call it. Now I'll tell you that how we can pass parameters to a function. Passing the parameters. For that I'll define one more function here. I'll write my name, and in this I'll use a parameter name. So this is the parameter which we are passing into the function. Use a colon, then tab space, and then here I'll write print name. So what this function does is, it will print the variable whichever we have passed in this function. It will print that. So let us do that now. Let us call this function. So I'll write my name, and here I have passed a string. Okay, so now let's see the output. So the output of this function should be Joey, because we are just writing print name in this function. So let us see that. So now we see that when we pass a parameter and when we call that function, we have the string Joey as the output here, because we have passed it in our function. So this is the way in which we can define a function using parameters, and here we have called a function and passed the parameter Joey into this. The other thing which we could have done is, suppose I have defined a variable b equal to Joey here, then I could have passed this b variable here. So even that is correct. So we see that we get the same output. So it depends on you that whichever method is convenient, you can use that. So this is the way in which we pass the parameters. Suppose that you want to pass multiple parameters, then you can just separate it by using comma, like here print name and then class name, and let me write age. So what I'll just whenever you want to add more parameters into your function, you just need to separate it by comma and then write the parameters. So here I'll just change it. I'll write name and age, and here I'll write, let me write c equal to 10, and I'll pass one more parameter, that is c here, and if I see the output, I'll get the output as Joey and 10. So this is the way in which we pass multiple parameters into the function. Now I'll show that how we can use default parameters, or how we can set some parameters to default values. So default parameters. For that I'll define a function, I'll use my age, and then I'll pass a parameter age, but at the same time I will assign it with the value of 10 here, and then I'll write age. So what this function does is, it has the default value of age as 10. So if we don't pass any parameter to this function, or we don't while calling it, then it will print 10 directly, because we have a default value of age. And suppose if we give the value of this parameter to some, like to be 10, to be 12, 13, or etc., it will print the age respectively as 12, 13. But in case no parameter is supplied while calling the function, it will use the default value 10 and then print the same. So let me show you that. My age, I'll change this value here to 19 or something like that, and here I'll call this function using a new parameter or new value, that is 20 here, and here I'll call this function directly without supplying any variables or arguments. So now let us see the output. So what we see here is that when I use this function, when I call this function using 20 as a parameter, it prints 20, but when I supply no parameters to it, it takes the default value and prints 19 as the output. So this is the way in which we pass default, in which we can use this parameters as default ones. Now I'll show you that how we can pass list in a function. For that I'll define a function, define a list, and then here I'll write the list name of a parameter list1, and then I'll write for x in list1 print x. Okay, so this is what we have done till now, and this defines a function. In order to call this function, I need to have a list ready with me. So I'll make this list of Joey, and then some names I'll write here, Jake and Holt, and I'll write Amy. Okay, so this is my list here. Now what this list will do is, it will print all the names in list 1. So I'll just write lists of list 1. When I do this, all the names in this will be printed. So let us see the output. So here we see that all the names have been displayed from the list. So this is the way in which we pass list to a function. Okay. We can also return a value from a function. So now we'll learn how to return a value from a function. For example, you're defining the function suppose you want to define a function for multiplying a number with 5. Okay, so I'll name the function as mul5, and then I'll pass the parameter x here, and what I'll do is, in order to return the value, since when we multiply a number with 5, it will give us some output. But in order to use that output, what we can do is, we can use return statement, return 5 star x. So what this will do is, whenever we call this function, it will return back the value of 5 into x, that particular number. So now suppose that we want to call this number we want to multiply 10 with 5. So what I'll do is I'll just call this function multiply by 5 and then pass the parameter 10. So when I pass 10, its output will be 10 into 5, which is 50. So now what I'll do is I'll print this. So this is the way in which we access the function which returns a value. And okay, so here we see that 50 is printed on the screen as output. So this is the way in which we return values. Now I'll explain you about recursion, and I know that recursion is bit a difficult topic, and it is possible that you might not understand everything, whatever I tell you right now. So now let us start learning about recursion. So basically, what are recursion? We can tell that when a function calls itself, it is called as recursion. Let me write that. When a function calls itself, it is called as recursion. Recursion can be considered a kind of a loop. I'll explain you how here. Suppose we are defining a function for finding the factorial. So what I'll do is I'll write define and then factorial. Then I'll pass the parameter x, of which we need to find the factorial here. Every recursion has two cases which you need to take care. One is the base case. Base case, and another one will be the general case where you do the normal computations. Base cases are the one where the problem can be solved without any further computations, and general case is where you perform all the computations or the looping part, etc. So now whenever we need to calculate a factorial, for example, if I want to calculate the factorial of 5, so what I'll do is the factorial of 5 is equal to 1 into 2 into 2 into 3 into 4 into 5. So this is the way in which we calculate factorial, right? So we can find this as I'll just write a simple base case here, that if the value of x is equal to 0 or the value of x is equal to 1, I'll just return 1. This is because if we find the factorial, we know that factorial of 0 is 1, and at the same time factorial of 1 is 1. So if anyone passes the value of x to be 1, we'll check this condition and return 1, which is the factorial of 1. And suppose the value of x is not 1, what we'll do is we'll return here x into factorial of x minus 1. I'll write else. Okay, so here if our value is 5, so what happens here is this is the general case and this is the base case, and if our function doesn't have a base case, then this factorial function will be like an infinite loop. So a base case is necessary in a recursion. This type of functions are called as recursion because we see that we have defined the function factorial and we are using the same function here, that is factorial, again to define that function itself. So what happens here is that suppose our value of x is 5. So what actually happens here is first we'll check if x is 0 or 1, but it is not true. So at first it will return 5 into factorial of x minus 1, factorial of 4. And now in order to compute the factorial of 4, what it will do is it will do 4 into factorial of 3. And now in order to calculate the factorial of 3, it will do 3 into into factorial of 2. And now in order to calculate the factorial of 2, it will do 2 into factorial of 1. Now we see that we have got factorial of 1, and here the condition is if x equal to 0 or x equal to 1, return 1. So what this will do is now it will return the value of 1. So when we do this, we get the output as 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 into 5. So this is the way in which our recursion for factorial will work. If our factorial recursion didn't have a base case, then it would have turned into an infinite loop. So now let's print our factorial of I'll write print factorial of 5, and let us see the output. We know that factorial of 5 is 120, and here we have got the same as the output. So this is all about functions, how to define a function, how to call them, how to pass the parameters, how we can have the default parameters, and then how we can pass a list and recursion. So this is it in this video. Thanks for watching my videos. Please do like and subscribe. Thank you.